Hey, this is Enoch the Enlightened, and you're watching Drinkin That Mode.
All right, everybody, welcome to Drinkin' Mo's. Your host, Big Mo, here. If you're watching the YouTube video version of this, like, subscribe, turn on the notifications because May is a huge month. Got tons of stuff towards the end of the month here. And we're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor. Be sure to leave a rating. Every little bit helps. Today I have with me, very excited, Enoch. You have the Enlightened. How you doing?
What's going on, man? Yeah, Enoch the Enlightened. How you guys doing? It's nice to be on here and get to chat with you, Mo. I appreciate you having me on.
Oh yeah.
I dig the beard. You know, it's very majestic.
Oh yeah. Yeah, ever since I got out of the Navy and having to shave sometimes twice a day for 4 years, I was like, yeah, nope, not shaving anymore.
I completely get it. Yeah.
But yeah, I think what ended up getting me in touch with you was my boy SoCal Crazy. I think that was around the time that I ended up getting in touch with you, and then we ended up getting this scheduled. So all good. I know I've been hearing some things with One Ring Circus, their shows, and you guys having some stuff going on there.
Yeah, it's been pretty awesome. So I have a friend. His name was he wrestles this wrestling mat, and he started he started training like maybe 2004, 2005. Just kept on pursuing it until maybe like 2015, and then that's when he kind of had like his first match, like starting to actually wrestle, and he was always like kind of like an older brother to me, so I'd always hit him up like, hey, come down, we got a show, I'm in San Diego, like come out. And then eventually he just kind of found something that stuck, which was his wrestling mat character, and then he also did a character called Randy Order, where he did like a police character in San Diego that was really hated for sure. And then he got One Ring Circus together with a mutual friend of ours called his name is Chris Disney. And once I knew that they were putting something out, I just hit him up and said, you know, we need to make some magic. And their shows are really fun. The crowds are really hot. You know, they get into it. And so that's always really important, because if you have a ton of people and they're not making any noise, you might as well have nobody there. Same like if you have 20 people and they're like going, you know, bananas for you, then it's the best. It's just, it creates that whole experience, you know?
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, they always say at wrestling shows, or the wrestlers say, without the crowds, there wouldn't be any them, because, you know, wrestlers, you hear oftentimes talk about feeding off the crowd, needing that reaction to know, like, hey, this is working, or nah, I probably need to not do that again.
Yeah, exactly. And it would be hard to have that same experience, you know, where you're learning what to do and not to do with the crowd that's just not making any noise, because then you don't know what's working or who liked what's, and that's when you get into the issue of just doing moves for the sake of moves, you know, like which is what I did way too much of in my young career, which is why I had to retire at 30. You know, I started at 15, and so all the flips and all that stuff just kind of caught up. You know, when I hit 30, it was like, oh, you're basically 40 now.
I can relate a little bit there. You mentioned a lot of the stuff, you know, starting at 15, one thing that I do like to make sure that I talk to everybody about is what got you started as a fan, and then what made you decide 15 to go ahead and start getting training.
So I was watching that it was like a karate show, WCW Masters or something like that. I don't remember the exact name. And like they would fight like on this platform, and they had like gimmicks and characters and stuff. And then after that, wrestling would come on. And so I would stick around for the wrestling. Like I didn't have anybody in my family that was into wrestling. I found it. And then I found Stone Cold Steve Austin, and he just like popped my cherry, you know. I was like, what the heck? This is the coolest thing in the entire world, you know? I came from like a really, really reserved, like Catholic background. My dad and my family came here from Cuba, like on a boat. So they always did like everything by the book as much as they could. So this was like, what the heck is this guy doing? And he's kicking ass and he's drinking beer and all this stuff, you know? And so I became like a super fan, and my dad supported it and like would take me to watch wrestling. And then I went to, I think it was Unforgiven, like September 2004. And sitting next to me were two other guys, and they were into the show. And I went with my cousin, and we got these guys' info, and they were like, we do a backyard wrestling company. And it happened to be like 4 blocks away from where my house was, and we're like at the Staples Center. So now like, you know, of all the places to be at, we just happen to be in that right place at the right time, you know? And so then I did the backyard wrestling for a bit, like maybe like 6 months. And then my backyard wrestling friend said, hey, there's this show at the Anaheim Marketplace where they did Lucha Libre. And they were like, do you want to go? And so I went with them. We went to the show. It was my first indie show. I didn't know what the hell indie was. And I was sitting on the guardrail like this. And I think it was Hardcore Kid, Aaron Aguilera, and somebody else. I can't remember. Aaron whipped the guy into the guardrail, and the guardrail hit me, and I fell on the floor. And everybody was like, oh, and then I nipped up. And nipped up to my feet, and all the crowd started like clapping for me, and I was like, "This is so cool!" And but the owner of the place, Martin Marin, he wrestles as El Genio, and he walked over and he was like, "We run a school," and he brought me in, and my dad brought me, and I started training with Little Cholo and a bunch of other local luchadors that, you know, helped pave the way for people like me to wrestle. So
that's awesome. Also awesome that, you know, you had a family that was supportive, even though they might not necessarily been into it. I know my family, they were kind of indifferent. Like they didn't think bad of me for liking it, but there were times where they definitely gave me some shit. Like, I honestly, this is a story I really love telling because I get a laugh out of it. There was at one point when I got back from the military that they honestly told me, do you really think you're ever going to meet anybody at those shows? And then, I kid you not, the guy that I ended up making the best man at my wedding, who I just interviewed, and his episode is going to be coming up here in a week or two. But he finally convinced me to go to the show, and I hadn't been there maybe 30, 45 minutes. He's like, hey, I got somebody I want you to meet. Introduced me to this girl that was helping out at the merch table. And here I am. We're about, what was it, 3? Yeah, we're about 3 years into it now.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, made him the best man at the wedding, and the promoter, we convinced him to get ordained, and he officiated. And I remember the wedding day, I walked up to my dad laughing my ass off, and I just said, I remember when you told me that. Like, hey,
oh man,
I met somebody at one of the shows.
Right, absolutely. Dude. Wrestling is insane. Like, you just get to meet so many different people. I mean, there's good and bad people. There's cool people. There's uncool people. You know, there's the nerds. There's the geeks. Like, wrestling is like going to high school for the rest of your life.
You know, in a lot of aspects, it very much is. And another thing that I like to think about it, kind of feeding off what you said, is you hear people talk about stuff being a melting pot. Pro wrestling shows can very much be that. You got a little bit of everybody. You got the casual fans, the ones that's like, hey, you should come with me to this, or the people that are like hardcore, like, yeah, every month we're doing this.
Yeah.
And just get all of it melting together, everybody having fun. And it's awesome, especially the indie shows. You know, people talking about like, oh, is that like the WWE stuff? And it's like, yeah, but it's like 10 times cheaper to sit just as close.
Yeah, exactly.
You mentioned
it's very.
Oh, yeah, no, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No, okay. I was gonna say it's so intimate. Like an indie show is just like it's like nothing else. Like being a heel like on an intimate show is so much different than just I don't know in like a big arena. Like you could focus on people. Like I heard, I can't remember who said it, but someone told me like you never know like who is having a bad day and is gonna go home and like beat their wife or like kids or something. Like you don't know, but instead they go to the show and they see you and they get that aggression out, and now when they go home they don't do that. They you know maybe they have a better night and they're like, yeah, I'm the big man, I made fun of this loser, you know, like
Yep, no, there's definitely some about the indie shows that, like you said, you get a lot more of that interaction, and you can make the crowd that much more a part of the show, because it is so much cheaper to get just as close as you'd have to pay a couple $100 for Monday Night Raw or something.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I remember specifically at a show recently, one of the heels and I was sitting right up front doing stuff for the YouTube channel, and I just yelled out at him, just because you have a dick doesn't mean you need to act like one, fucker. And he just looked at me like, what the fuck? So, you definitely get that.
Yeah, you get to, the crowd gets to help move the show along, and that's like what do people say are the best WWE shows or live shows? Remember those WWE shows where the crowds would hijack the shows and they would just kind of make it whatever they wanted, and like that's what every indie show is with a good crowd, you know? They can help make it.
Oh, that is totally true. You definitely have, like, heck, just look at, I mean, they're kind of a national example of an indie company, but GCW. Just look at the way the crowds are at those shows. They definitely are very much a part of that show.
Right.
All right. You mentioned. Get in there.
No, go ahead. It's your turn, because I cut you off already once.
No, it's all good. Anyways, you mentioned a little bit ago about how when you started your training, you're the wrestler, but then now you've moved into a bit of the manager type role. Was it bunch of the injuries piling up, like you kind of mentioned, that kind of influenced that? You know, you didn't want to completely step away from the business?
Yeah, absolutely. So so I had a lot of injuries over the years, and but I never really stopped wrestling. And once I hit 30, I was having the probably the best run of my career. I was vegan Superman. I had just beaten Leo Rush to win like a belt in San Diego. I was
Ooh.
like, I was yeah, like I was holding like 3 belts from different companies, and I felt like I was just on a roll. And then I had wrestled Human Tornado, who's one of my oldest friends, and I went for like a senton on him, and he turned in for whatever reason, and my lower back hit like his side, and
Mm.
bam, my head smacked, and it was just like,
Yeah.
it's never stopped ringing since that day. And I was like, I don't know how many permanent injuries I want anymore, you know. And I've got a son. He's 9. You know, I settled down. I'm engaged. You know, and like I see a life outside of wrestling in terms of like
Yeah.
just living, right? Like
Yeah.
when you're young, like you don't care. Like you're superhuman. Like I can show you stuff where I'm getting slammed outside the ring on the floor, and I never cared, landing on my neck, landing on my head, doing flips like everywhere, like, and I never cared. And then at some point, I just like I woke up and I was like, holy crap! Like I still have to live the rest of my life, you know?
Yeah.
And luckily that vegan Superman run had given me some skills on the mic. I had always been a charisma vacuum when it came to just that camera turns on. Like I was able to talk in real life and stuff, but like when the camera came on, it was like, oh, like I had no idea what to do. I remember like my friend Gary App, he'd help me film promos, and we'd have to break them up. It'd be like 3 words and then like cut, and then like 3 more words and then like cut, and then he'd like paste them all together. He's like, don't worry, man, it happens to everyone, you'll get better. And I got better. And then so I said, you like, I could do this for the rest of my life as a manager, or I can keep doing this and lose my life as a wrestler. So at least I get to still do it. And when I first realized that, it broke my heart, and I stepped away for 2.5, almost 3 years. And then I got hit up by Kyle Wilde, who owns this company called Crimson Crown Wrestling, and he wanted to bring me in for this gimmick called cruelty-free violence. And I came up with the name Enoch, and my friend Mike, who I had helped train for like the 5 years prior to that, before I retired, who actually I backyard wrestled with back in the day. And I have clips in my front yard of us doing wrestling and on the grass. And anyway, so then I'm managing him as and like Supreme is giving us advice and helping us to make our character and stuff. And then so we named him Gulliver the Giant, and I was Enoch the Enlightened, and we were cruelty-free violence. And then we were just like hipsters, you know, and I just kind of ran with that ever since, you know.
That's awesome. You mentioned a guy that I'm actually kind of familiar with, because you know was a fan of the original XVW product. You mentioned Supreme there.
Rest in peace.
Oh yeah, rest in peace. Yeah, I was a huge fan of him, and actually one of his relatives, Chaos, that runs Santino's.
That's a great school.
Oh yeah, I've heard loads of good things about that school. He was actually in my second ever indie show.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it was for a promotion at the time, New Wave Pro, and a guy that I actually interviewed helped run that, and you know, loads of good memories. The San Diego area is where I got my actual introduction to independent wrestling.
Oh, okay.
So, when it comes to managing, what are some of the similarities in the business, similarities and differences in the business from the wrestling aspect?
I guess it's kind of like being inside the box, but looking like feeling like you're inside the box, but actually you're standing on the outside looking in, because I'm a part of the match, but I can also stand back and help direct the match. You know, if the guy's on the newer side, I can help them kind of structure their match together. Like I still get people that I work with saying, "Hey man, do you think this is good, or what do you think?" And then I come in and I'm like, "Okay, well this would be better," and like they say hindsight's 2020, and now that I'm not wrestling, my mind is so much better at it, you know, like it makes the psychology of it is going it goes a lot further versus like, again, spot fest, just trying to get your shit in type of mentality, which is how all of us were raised. Like I started in that beginning of I was the not even the generation, I was at the tail end of Scorpio Sky and B-Boy and all those guys that were doing that original, like hard-hitting, strong style, SoCal, New Japan like style, you know, and that's what we were all taught. We do all these big moves, we flip, we do all that stuff. And I wish that I had taken more of an interest then into cutting promos and having a character, because now it's just a world of difference. If I had my body the way that I had then now, it'd be a whole different ball game, you know?
Oh yeah. One thing with the groups that you've helped manage and wrestlers, what are the people that draw your attention to be like, hey, I wouldn't mind working with him?
See, first of all, like I love working with giants. So anybody that's giant, I mean, I've worked 6'5", 6'4". I mean, Haas Hog, my friend Gotch, like, and then I worked with this guy named Jack Talos, who is 7 foot tall, and it's just being the mouthpiece for someone that doesn't talk benefits me, because that's what I like to do, is I like to talk.
Yeah.
So I don't want to overshadow somebody, but if that's their thing, it makes it easier versus like someone my size, and then now they're like second fiddle and I'm a manager, you know?
Yeah.
Like they know that this 7 foot tall guy is the wrestler and I'm just the mouthpiece, you know? But
no, that makes sense.
Yeah, and I do like people that have charisma and I can bounce off of. The first real experience that I had, I worked for this company called Pandemonium out here, Pandemonium Pro Wrestling, and their stuff is super, like their quality is just, it's not like anything else really on the indies. And I got to really work a lot of like character stuff, and they put me with this guy named Honest John, who might be one of the best characters in indie wrestling. And we got to kind of like share the spotlight, like Kurt Hennig and Bobby Heenan, you know, like working together, like two people who can talk, but they more play off of each other, or even something more current, like an Edge and Christian, you know, like that's how like I like being able to play with somebody who makes me better. You know, I can only get so good cutting promos by myself or against myself if the other guy isn't talking. Usually in SoCal, I'm the only one on the show talking, you know, other than the ring announcer or commentators, you know?
Yeah.
So it's nice to have other people to work off of. And even the other day, I was feeling a little feisty, and I put a promo saying that put anybody on the mic against me and I'll eat them up. Yum. That was like my post, you know? And all these people chimed in, you know, like, I'm like, yeah, like I would love to face off against like Seville. I told you so, like his whole thing. So, man, he changes his name so much. And that's what I get a lot of slack for, is my name changing over the years. because I started as Marcus Riot, and then I had a lot of heat from working with companies that weren't seen in the right light, and so I thought, you know what, I'm going to change my name. I started when I was 15. I'm 22. I want to change it, so I was Jacob the Riot Diaz, and that was cool. And then so I did that for a while, and then I got a mask and I changed my name to Cara de Leon, and would still wrestle as Jacob Diaz, but I did the vegan Superman Jacob Diaz, right? So now we're at 4 names. And then when I retired, like I have a therapist that I talked to that it was hard to get over wrestling, and she was like, if you're ever gonna like retire Jarrell or Jacob Diaz, Marcus Wright, the wrestler, like you have to get rid of anything associated with the name. And then so Enoch the Enlightened is just completely different, you know?
Oh,
so
I gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, that's definitely true. Because like if you've been something for so long and then you in an aspect have to step away because of an injury or something, but you still want to stay in, you know, sometimes that little bit of a change can be something to really stir it up.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. It's like it's an ego death, you know, like that character who I was, you know, just had to just go, and I had to just become other things, you know?
Yeah.
So that's
Nope.
that. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, anyways, I was wanting to mention something about you were talking about feeding off of the guy that you might manage. I've actually had a couple, well, actually just one, but I got another person wanting to do the interview in character, and they're both heels, and so I'm like, fine, yeah, I can feed off of it. And one was coming up saying, "Al, I hope you don't take offense. I might be a bit of a dick." And I'm like, "Hey, if you don't mind me being a dick back, fine." in the same aspect, you know, like I can.
Yeah.
You want to do that? I can feed off of it. I can bounce off of it. So I can understand the appeal to that.
Oh, absolutely. That's how you get better. Like you know, I'm sure you've interviewed people who had nothing to say, and it's like pulling teeth. Like, come on, talk. Like, say something, be entertaining. But if you sat there and said nothing, I would have talked for an hour. So like, you know, it's like just different people, different strokes, right? Like,
oh yeah, definitely. And I mean, starting off, there were times where I would stumble over things a little, you know, just working out the kinks and all that. And then I started taking in advice from everybody, and then I started to find my flow. And hey, I've been getting some positive feedback. I actually was at a show here in Omaha not all that long ago where I was just in intermission talking it up with somebody. It's like, "Hey, are you Big Mo, like drinking at Mo's?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that'd be me." And it was like, "Oh my god, I love the show." And I'm like, "Oh, thank you." Like, I don't think I'll ever get used to that, but it was like that was just awesome.
yeah, I'm sure like that's got to be a good feeling. Like, I know a couple times where I've been out with like my son, and like someone comes up and recognizes me, and he's like, "Dad, you're famous," and I'm like, "Oh yeah."
I can only hope that when my wife and I have kids, you know, that maybe I'll end up having a similar experience one day with them. That would be awesome.
Yeah, no, that's come full circle for sure. I mean, then you could really like say, come on, what do you think about that, Dad? Come on, you know, like.
Yep, nope. I am so looking forward to that. Do you have, speaking of managers, do you have anybody like that you've managed so far that you're like, you know what, we really did something good with that one?
Well, I mean, I definitely think Honest John is one that I always really enjoy managing, and they gave us a group there called the Deadly Sins, and there's 5 of us, and that's really fun. The first, like, all of us are pretty loud and out there personalities, and when you give us like room to improv, it gets pretty crazy. We did like they did like a bear cave interview, and this guy, he was interviewing us, and like we had gotten him to like kiss our feet, and like we're like, one of us is like standing on his back, and then like the other guy comes,
wow.
that's on the crew, Ryan, he gets in the ring, and then they like hit him from behind, and then we're just like,
Oh no.
you know, like, and I'm just like, man, where, you know, like where, how far are we gonna take it? And so like sometimes, you know, when you have too many people working together, it can get out of control. So too many creative minds, and then there's almost no limit to what might happen. Like who's going to tell us to stop? And if someone stepped in, then the whole take would be ruined. So like, and then everybody's kind of a wasted effort at that point, you know?
Oh yeah. One thing I wanted to circle back to, you mentioned liking to work with giants. Correct me if I'm wrong. I know as far as One Ring Circus goes, Terex, or however you pronounce it.
Terex, yeah.
Pretty big dude. Like, I remember seeing him in New Way Pro, and a guy his size doing a fucking standing moonsault. I'm like, what? But correct me if I'm wrong. Is he part of your group there? I know he's involved with One Ring Circus.
Yeah. He's actually the guy that I started managing there. The first guy I managed there. And he's always really fun to work with because he comes with his own energy, and he is a bona fide ass kicker. So like, you know, you want someone in there that worst case scenario, they have your back, you know, and with Terex, I don't ever have to worry about that. I know that he has no problem kicking someone's ass if they mess with us. So that's always encouraging. And between me and Terex and Wrestling Matt and Heyman Rosecrown, that's the 4 of us. They have us there as Enoch's Enlightened. So I'm the boss, and they're my Enlightened, because I've changed their life for the better by just being me, you know.
So that, I mean, one hell of a stable there. Like I said, I've seen a lot of Terex's work. I mean, recently I know I saw him. I mean, outside of One Ring Circus, he was involved with the XPW new King of the Deathmatch tournament. That was something else, seeing him there.
Oh yeah, so I was in the crowd just watching. I came with my stuff in my Enoch, my full outfit with the tie and like my shoes, and I'm like walking around like, damn, I'm so out of place. I wanted to manage and like hit up Rob Black because I had helped him set up the ring the day prior to that. And then but for a death match, you don't really need like a manager out there in your death match tournament, you know? So anyway, so then I ended up just getting changed, and I was like, screw it, I'm just going to enjoy the show. I haven't watched a wrestling show in so long, like just to watch. And XPW was like that first company that wasn't WWE, that wasn't that indie show that I watched on TV. And I was like, what the heck is this? And I saw Joey Chaos, Kid Chaos wrestling with the belt. I mean, he's one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. And it really inspired me to get into it. And like, it's crazy that after that, I ended up working with them and then being friends with everybody at Santino's. Like all the people that come through it, a lot of them, like Eli Everfly, Biagio, Haas Hogg, Jesse James, like so many people, Famous B, like all these people that I've met that are just such good wrestlers and good people. And a lot of them come from Santino's. And so it's funny how things come full circle, like just watching it. I was like 13. I remember it was my birthday and Aaliyah had just died in the plane crash. And I went home and I was sad.
I remember.
And I found it. I found XPW and I was like, what the heck? And it just kind of changed my perspective of what wrestling could be, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, no, I kind of mentioned a little bit ago, I have been a fan of the original product, and when I saw they were doing this reboot or rebirth, because they had that rebirth show, I was like, oh, okay, I might need to watch this. And then because I pointed out a mistake on their website, they blocked me on Twitter and Instagram.
Oh, that's not fun.
Yeah, I was like, oh, okay. And I tried watching, that King of the Deathmatch, and I mean, fan of deathmatch wrestling, it was a decent show, but my only qualm with it was so fucking long.
Oh yeah,
and absolutely. And like at the time that it started here, I got to the point where I'm like, oh, okay, I'm gonna go to bed now. Because I mean, you just get off of that whole big WrestleMania weekend and the sheer amount of shows. It's like I can watch wrestling like all day, but it gets to the point later in the evening where it's like, okay, I need to go to bed now.
Yeah, I only stayed for the first round because I had like an hour and a half drive home, and I had done a show earlier in the day that was like, so I drove like 2.5 hours to that show, and I had coached my son's soccer team, and then like from that show it was like 2 hours to XPW, and I got there at like 5. The show started at 8, and then so after the first round, I was like, I'm out, dude. But that first round was incredible. Well, I thought it was great. Like with live, yeah. I don't know how it translated online, but that especially the Necro Butcher match where they were just smashing each other's heads with chairs. That thing was insane. I was like, oh yeah. My friend who's a grown man was like grabbing my arm, like, oh, like I was like, get off me, dude.
Oh yeah, no that. That first round, especially, I have to agree, it was something else. That's for sure.
Yeah, it was absolutely nuts.
Yeah,
but I was gonna say, if you ever get a chance, check out WSX. I don't know if you saw Wrestling Society X.
Yep.
But I did wrestle Jack Evans on their it was like their online show. And I got to like stay on set for like the whole week. I was like 19 years old, and I was getting to rub elbows with like X-Pac and Colt Cabana and Ruckus.
Ooh, sponsor break time. Sometimes you just don't want people seeing certain things, especially when it comes to things like erectile dysfunction. So this sponsor break is for our sponsor, Bonerville. It ships to your home in discreet packaging because you know what? Like I just said, you don't want your neighbors seeing your boner pills on your porch. Get Bonerfield today.
I actually just yesterday talked with the guy that helps him run that Black and Brave Academy.
Oh, nice, for sure.
That was a nice episode. They got a show coming out here, not this weekend, but the next one. So I told him I'd get his episode out, at least the podcast one, Sunday, so they can have some time to, share and promote. But we talked a lot about some of the current stuff in wrestling. What are some of your thoughts on like the current state of wrestling? Because there's so much out there.
Well, I mean, the biggest thing is every part of me is screaming like, I wish I was 10 years younger. You know, like in SoCal, there wasn't anything like this. I mean, that's why look at the crop of who made it from SoCal. Like you got like 10, 15 people over the last 20 years that have really made it big from SoCal, because there was no scene here. And now there's such a huge scene that I want to hit everybody up, and like nobody wants managers because nobody does storylines. They're all just exhibition matches. Like here comes wrestler A against wrestler B, you know? So like a lot of people have me come out and like just walk the guy to the ring and don't even ask, like, let me cut a promo. It's like, why would you have me there and not let me cut a promo and rile the crowd up? I mean, I might as well be like a cheerleader at that point, you know?
No, I get you there. It's one thing, you know, have you there, but you know, have that little bit of time right before they bring the other guy out. If you're out first, and just gets the crowd like you said, riled up, and like, oh, whoever coming out next, I want to see him kick this guy's ass.
Exactly, and that's how you get the least over guy in the room the most over, because you take the biggest heel, you know, and you rile the crowd up, and then he comes out and they're like, anybody, yes, come out here and shut this dude up, shut both of these guys up, or whatever, you know. And I just feel like that art is kind of lost, and history is repeating itself, but even worse because you can't do a triple moonsault. So like the person who tries, who knows what's going to happen to them? And then the next guy is going to be like, no, I can do a quadruple moonsault. You know, like you can only go so far.
That makes sense. Yeah, I mean, the job, like you said, of a good heel is to make it so everybody's cheering on. Who it could be anybody,
right?
Exactly. All right. So one thing that I like to do to start rounding things off, a little bit of a speed run where I name some people, maybe a promotion. You give me your thoughts however you see fit.
That sounds good to me. I'm an open book.
All right. First, you know, I like to kind of tailor it a little bit to the guest, and since you're a manager, I figure I'll include managers here. First off, one of the people that is considered one of the greatest to ever be a manager, Bobby Heenan.
Incredible, and you know, paved the way for all future managers to come and just, I don't know, just do something different, shape things up, and be charismatic and loud, you know?
Yeah, and like we kind of mentioned, he could get the crowd riled up and be like, you know what? As long as whoever's the good guy here, as long as they're kicking his ass, I'm good.
Yeah.
He was every bit of that. All right. Next off here, guy still doing his thing, still one of the greats, great mind for the business, Paul Heyman.
Oh man, yeah, definitely. Arguably the greatest speaker of all time, as far as managers or even anybody aside from like maybe The Rock. But his longevity, like Paul Heyman has been a integral figure in wrestling since the 90s, and will continue being a figure in wrestling longer than probably all of this generation now.
You know? I would have to agree. I'd like to think that, I mean, even if he isn't in front of the camera leading somebody like Roman Reigns in the Bloodline, that I imagine him being one of those lifers that it's like he might not be in front of the camera, but he's still around.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Next one, guy that's very famous in the podcast game now. Did a lot of kind of de facto managing. Eric Bischoff.
Oh, well, definitely one of the most controversial people in wrestling. And I didn't do as much with WCW growing up. I was definitely a WWF guy, but he definitely knew how to piss people off. And that's something that I definitely took away from him, watching him and seeing the way that he could command a room and just really be hated, you know?
Yeah. No, that as that book of his says, controversy creates cash. He knew how to create controversy, and it made him a hell of a lot of money.
Yep.
All right, another guy, kind of round off the speed round here. Another controversial guy, but again, when you think of wrestling managers, hard to not think of this guy, Jim Cornette.
Oh, man. Yeah. He definitely is a really flexible manager. He's able to manage so many different people. And something that I could take from him is he never like compromised who he was to manage somebody else. Because when I first started managing, I thought that I'd have to be a man of many different hats. Like this guy is a cowboy, so now I got to be a cowboy. And then this guy is, another character. And so I need to change myself to match them, but I don't. Like, I'm myself no matter who I'm with. And that's something that I definitely took from him. If we're going positive route, right? Because there's definitely a lot of people that don't agree with what he says out there.
That is true. Nope, and I can definitely agree with you on that aspect. Like, as far as his character, he never really changed that aspect of himself to match whoever he was managing. I mean, he's managed so many people. I mean, you look at him when he had what was it? He had Davey Boy for a while. He had Owen and Yokozuna. I mean, come on, those two very different people.
Stark.
They made a hell of a tag team, but I mean, you look at Yokozuna and then Jim Cornette just over there. Very different people.
Yeah, exactly. And he never compromised who he was to manage either of them. He came out the same with Owen as he did with Yokozuna. He didn't try to come out and copy either of their styles, which is great about being who you are, which is something that I didn't know when I started, who I was.
Yeah.
So.
No, and that's one thing with they say with wrestling characters is the best ones are basically just an extension of yourself. And I mean, everything that I've seen, I mean, as far as Jim Cornette goes, you can definitely tell that, I mean, the character in front of the camera definitely looks similar to him off camera.
Yeah.
So
definitely. I agree.
All right. So that's about all I had, but I want to give you the chance. Plug if you got some things you want to plug that you got coming up, and where people can find you on social media so they can follow you.
Just check me out on Instagram at Enoch the Enlightened. That's the one that I use the most. Enoch _the _ Enlightened. And I got a lot of shows coming up in the next couple months. Check out Pandemonium Pro Wrestling. Check out Crimson Crown Wrestling. check out who else do we got? We got 3PW. That's another company that I'm going to be making my debut with. Check out One Ring Circus. And I was like, I get put on the spot. I can't think of anything else anymore. What should we call it? And then I also play in a reggae band. Check us out on Instagram, Vagabones Cali. That's BAGABONES Cali.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my little hidden talent. Like all of my friends, it's funny. I know bring this up at the end, but I grew up with the Young Bucks. We used to wrestle in the backyard together, in Victorville, and they owned a company called High Risk Wrestling, and we went through the years together. But anyways, when we were in our 20s, they were like, "Man, wrestling's gonna beat you up. You should just quit wrestling and pursue music. Music's where it's at." And I was like, I wish that I would have, pursued more music around those times.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the Bucks. They're just like, woo.
Yeah, they're doing big things.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, no, I'll be sure to post links to the social media accounts, and definitely, again, with some of the promotions, I'll post links to them. And funny you bring up the band that before we head off here. It was this band. You posted some videos of a performance on your Instagram? Was that band? Because I do remember.
Yeah,
seeing
that's we get it's not my full band together, but we make a lot of money playing private gigs, and we actually got paid to do we got like a grand between the three of us to do like a private party at like a $3 million mansion.
Ooh.
I know. It was insane, and I had just been at my show. I just finished wrestling. I mean, not wrestling, but managing. And then my friend was like, "No, you have to come play this show." And it's like 2 hours away. I'm like, "All right." And it's like a $3 million home. So I'm glad I had that experience, And that's where the videos are from that I posted.
Nice.
Yeah.
And you mentioned, well, I'll do a little bit of plugging myself here. I'll have this episode up before this event, but something I haven't posted too much about it on Instagram anyways, but this show has gotten invited to the Warrior Wrestling event in FanFest down in St. Louis, Missouri here May 28th. And I'm excited about that with some of the matches they got on that card with like Will Ospreay versus Davey Richards, Jeff Cobb and Jonah.
Oh, wow.
I'm extremely excited to be a part of all that.
That sounds like an awesome card. I love Davey. I'm a huge fan of his and Will Ospreay, so I'm sure that match is going to be out of this world.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. I mean, those two matches alone was like, okay, I have to be there.
I get
but
that.
All right.
Yeah.
Yep. No. Well, anyways, thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
Yeah.
Like I said, I will have this up. I try to keep it like 1 a week, sometimes 2. This one will be up, I believe, a week from Sunday, because I got one already planned for next week. So this will be my little extra one for a week from Sunday.
Okay. For sure. That sounds good. I'm looking forward to it.
All right.